Well, it looks as though we have several people who have joined us as of now. So this is Ray Rayberg. I'm from the Regional Office of Education, and also co-moderating today's session is Jeff Hunt from the ROE, and Dr. Phil Lacey, who's the Director of Instructional Technology at Niles Township High School District 219. And Phil will be leading today's initial session of our weekly luncheon sessions on the topic from course materials to complete courses and open educational resources. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Phil and turn the microphone and the session over to him.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody. I'm honored to be here on this inaugural launch. Again, my name is Phil Lacey. I'm Director of Instructional Technology for District 219 in Skokie, Illinois. And I've been working for about the last 2.5 years with my faculty to try to integrate and better use open education resources in various ways. In the interest of full disclosure, I do work with the National Repository of Online Courses, NROC, which is a group that we'll explore later. Does anybody have any initial questions before I get going here? I realize that we're on a tight time frame here. I believe we're at about a 30-minute session, but if Jeff and Ray could help me watch the chat, we'll see what we can do as we move forward here. All right, so introductions are done. Here's what we'll cover today briefly. We'll talk about what OER is. We'll talk about why to use OER, or Open Education Resources, and we'll spend the bulk of the time demoing some selected websites. I'll show you a larger annotated list later on to do further exploration, but the idea here is more to see what's out there and how to use it, I thought, at this point in time than a whole lot of others, individual sites. So I'm going to actually use OER content to begin this. This content was taken from David Wiley from Brigham Young University, and it was put together in an infographic by a gentleman named Brian Setzer as a nice, easy way to segue into this. So, open education resources are high-quality, openly licensed online educational materials that offer an extraordinary opportunity for people everywhere to share, use, and reuse knowledge. They also demonstrate great potential as a mechanism for instructional innovation, as well as networks of teachers and learners to share best practices. Proprietary textbooks are not able to take into account individual learners' needs, which is somewhere that these excel. They don't provide multiple perspectives, nor are they easily editable. And as we move forward, hopefully, you'll start to see where OER does actually excel in all of these different areas. Teaching and learning is predicated on the sharing of information. OER model encourages and facilitates the sharing and transfer of knowledge without surrendering one's intellectual property rights. And as you see on here, there's kind of a model here where you've got teachers sharing with the students and students sharing back with the teachers. And the whole idea here with OER is that somebody makes something and they share it back out with the community. Now, doing so doesn't necessarily mean that you surrender your intellectual property rights. As you see here, there are different levels of sharing and different rights that you can grant users. And as OER resources are continually developed, teachers, administrators, and stakeholders become more comfortable with the idea that high-quality content doesn't need to come with a high cost from a brand name. This is something that we fight all the time. It doesn't have a publisher's name on it. It doesn't have a brand name logo, so it can't be any good. But once people have started going out here and exploring and seeing what's there, the value that's inherent in these becomes more and more obvious. And you start to realize that there's a great opportunity here for things like the cost of textbooks and other curricular materials to be decreased. And as more and more high-quality content comes out, you'll see that you can leverage these and pay production costs instead of advertising fees for the companies. So the next step moving forward with this, after you've introduced your users and faculty to this, is challenging them to go from becoming users to becoming producers. And before we go a whole lot further, we should probably talk about what OER can be. Things such as learning objects, quizzes, activities that have already been done, audio lectures. Again, some of this may already be done, and some of these you may make. There's video lectures, as you see in Flipped Learning. You can find images, sound files, music files, entire courses, collections of journals and articles, textbooks. The list out there is pretty long and pretty amazing. So before I move forward and to start sharing any OER, I know I kind of gunned through some of the definition and explanation. Is anybody out there identified any large gaps that I've left or huge questions before we move into a more demonstrative view of what OER is? All right, so I'm going to move on here. It looks like the slide got a little bit scrambled, but typically when you're working with OER and any content for that matter, right, you're looking for high quality, engaging content that's thorough and easy to use. And so I've gone through, and there is a link right now. This bit.ly link will take you to a thoroughly annotated site with a huge amount of resources out there, only a few of which I've selected to go through. And it's going to be a pretty strange mix from initial appearances, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to cover a variety of curricular areas and grade levels as we move through this. So I am going to go ahead here, and I am going to switch over to some screen sharing here. All right, and this isn't quite where we wanted to start here. So we're going to start right here. So what I have is we're going to start through some solid starters here. And I'm beginning with Hippocampus, and it's actually developed by the group called the National Repository of Online Courses, as I mentioned earlier. And Hippocampus is actually a really well-growing library of high-quality online course content for students and faculty in higher education. It's kind of where they're aimed right now, although as time goes on, they will be adding more and more content to it for a larger group other than just high school. And so if you go through here, what I have right now is actually a branded site, but if you were to go to just hippocampus.org, everything will look pretty much the same. You can go through here and browse by subjects. I am going to go in and we'll go down to history and government, and you can go in here by collections. I'm just going to go into U.S. history, and you'll see that you can launch a course. There's textbook correlations, so if you have a major textbook, major publisher, you can see that they've gone through and correlated the content to many existing textbooks. Likewise, you can also go in, if you'd like, under standards. And I've got mine set to Illinois here, as you can see, but you can also select the national standards. They are now linked to correlated to the Common Core curriculum also. I'm going to go back to my topics here and go into U.S. history, just to give you a brief idea of the things that are in here and the way that this works. If we scroll down here, there's a lot of content here. I'm just going to go into one of these quickly here. No real political affiliation with the president that I selected, but if you click on this, what you can do is you can link to all of these different resources here. And so they've got these great presentations. I'm going to skip that. That was probably a little bit loud here. But not only do they have the audio, but you can also go through here and you can look at the text. And if you go back to some of the other topics that are here, we'll go into arithmetic, again, just to give you a brief idea of what you can do here. You'll also notice that when you go in here, if NROC didn't have any content here, they've also gone through and they've started partnering with some other groups, Salman Khan, so you've got the Khan Academy here. You can go into PhET, which is a series of high quality, mainly science, but there's a lot of math simulations here that students can use, and we'll cover that again in a couple of minutes. You can set up your own account for free on here. You can go into log in and set one up. And what you can do inside the controls is you can actually go back into these topics. And as an instructor, you can turn them on and off and send your students to your own page. You'll notice that the link up here is one that's set up to just me. And I can hand this out to my students. And if I was a math teacher, I can turn off all the other subjects on here so the students will only see arithmetic and the book or the standards that I want them to see. As I mentioned, the National Repository of Online Courses that runs this actually has a lot more content out here. And they actually have entire courses. And if you become a member, I do believe that the state of Illinois has an agency level license. You can actually go through into these courses and you can download many of these into your LMS, into Blackboard or Moodle without a whole lot of effort. There are some other collections going forward here. I'm going to move on to one called Connections. And Connections is a place where you can view and share educational materials made up of, basically they call them small knowledge chunks called modules that can be organized. Sometimes they're courses, sometimes they're books, sometimes they're just reports. And anyone can go in here and find anything they want. Anyone can go in here and contribute. What I've done here is I have actually found one that's set up as resources for blind students. And just to give you an idea of the scope, things that are here. And it kind of walks you through how to set things up if you were going to go out and set something like this up on your own. Again, we're not going to go too far into that today. But you can go back home to the beginning here, and you could go back in and search for U.S. history content, or you can go back in and browse by area here. It tells you that they've got 1,196 different collections. Looks like things are moving a little slowly here. I may pick up and move on. Let's give it a second to load. And it looks like the internet is just a little bit slow today. Oh, there we go. And so you do a search and you can come up here and it tells you what you found. And so in this case, there's some courses here. It looks like there are some individual files down the line with some lessons. And you can go back and you can refine your search going by full collections. You can go back in and search up and down here. The nice thing on the side is the community ranks these. So if you make your own login for free, you can go back in and rate materials as you find them, because it's often a very difficult thing to do. It's kind of looking for a needle in a haystack without some guidance on places to go as to what you're looking for. The next place we're going to go is actually a commercial site, but surprisingly, SAS Curriculum Pathways has set up some very, very nice resources that are available for free. And they are very nicely linked by standard, both to Illinois or Common Core. So you have the opportunity to go in and see what you're looking for. I'm going to go in and we'll go into math here. And we'll go into middle and junior high. You can go by state goals if you want to do that, which is kind of what we're set up here for. And break it down by benchmark. And here are some of the lessons, and they, there we go. My job around. And so there's a great little simulation here that the students are able to use, and as I just clicked off of it. So you can go back through and you can share these out. You can hyperlink to them to make them more valuable for your students as far as making it easy to go. And as the students go through here, you can go back in, and the students enjoy doing this. You can see the effect of changing some of the variables and what that has on these. You can move the sensor up and downstream to see what's going on. And down at the bottom here, you'll see that they have some more resources in addition to just using the simulation here. They've also got some guided questions. There's a nice glossary here. At any point in time, the students can go through if they need to print things, so they can keep track of something if they need to do that on a regular basis. Does anybody have any questions or need any further clarification? I'm kind of rifling through here, but I want to try to get as much in as we can. No? Everybody out there can hear me, right? Okay, so I am going to move on. Earlier we had talked about PhET, a great place set up for a huge amount of simulations here. You can go back through. They're all Java-based, but you'll also notice that you can go through. There are some K5 simulations. I am going to see what pops up here. So you can go back through and gravity and orbits. I'm going to go back through, and you can see here that everything is linked to standards. It gives you a nice little explanation of what it is. You can go through and you can run through this. And the neat thing about PhET, I know that some school districts have issues with bandwidth, and these are individual Java files. So if you've got 30 kids trying to pull this down, this may tax your system. But one of the things that PhET offers is you can actually go and download all of these files to a local machine. So you can sit there and install it on machines and text the machines as opposed to your network here. And you can go back through, and again, the students have the opportunity to go through and manipulate the variables here. So there's the cartoon, there's the scale, and we'll turn this off and move on here. Another great place, I know that quite often books are expensive, and Project Gutenberg is an excellent place to go through and find books. Now, granted, everything here is already public domain, and so I believe right now it's 75 years or longer, unless you're Disney. But you can go back through here, and what I've done is I've started their top 100 list. There are a lot of popular books that are used in literature courses that are here available. They can be downloaded as PDF. Many of them are in an EPUB format, so they can work on a Nook, they can work on an iPad, and they can work on a whole bunch of other easy formats. A partner with Project Gutenberg is Librebox. And what they've done here is many of the books that you'll see in Project Gutenberg are also available as MP3 files. So students who have issues reading or otherwise can go back through and download and listen to the MP3 files. This is also great because they do have many different books, a lot of content in other languages. And so if you were in a German class, you could go back through and you could listen to the Grimm's Brothers actually in German. So you had an idea as you were following through what it sounds like, what it should sound like. The next part that I'm going to go through here are actually some complete courses. And I know I'm getting down to the end of my time here. And so I'm going to start out at a place called Moodle Share. And Moodle Share is actually just a community of Moodle users who have uploaded their content to Moodle Share and made it available to other teachers. You'll notice that the content here is all listed under Creative Commons licensing. And the neat thing about this is you can actually click right here on this link if you were so inclined, download this entire course and upload it into your own LMS, Moodle server in this case. There are a whole lot of different courses in here. I thought that I would just start by showing you what one of these looks like. Again, this is one that somebody wrote, and if you pulled it into your own server, you'd be able to go back in and edit all of this on your own. Georgia Virtual, also this year recently, has released a lot of learning objects. While we are not part of the state of Georgia education system, so we can't really go in and download their entire courses, but you can go down and they've made parts of all of their modules available for people to use and look at. So you can go back through here and find some really high quality content that you can go back and use, copy and paste, edit, again, as long as you're citing them as the original makers. But they've got a learning object in here. There's a puzzle that you can go back in that I'm going to stop playing with before I embarrass myself too much. And the Open High School of Utah are one of the groups that have been actually trailblazers, putting out their content that they developed for Moodle for their virtual university online for the world to use. And the last resource that I want to hit here is K12 Bad Word. They are online textbooks, and if you see here, they are very, very heavy right now into math and science, although they do also have SAT prep. They've got a couple history books, and they are now delving into the area of language arts. And so you can go in here if you want. I already have a library set up. So if I were to go into my library, you can see that I've actually gone in and essentially downloaded one of their books that's already done. And I can go back in and I can reorder everything here. So I can take their chapters and I can drag them up and down and reorder them. And then I can also go in, if I'm so inclined, the edit button here. And I can go in and I can edit the content in this chapter. So I may not cover something in the order that they do. I may have some different vocabulary words. I can go back in, edit this, publish it back out, and then push it back out and make it available to my students. I can hyperlink to the individual chapters that were there, or I can publish the book as a PDF. My students can download it, so they don't necessarily have to be online to access it, or they could even send it to a print center if they were so inclined. That pretty much concludes my tour here. I believe that I need to leave some time for questions. We've got just about 10 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? Jeff, Ray?
No, I've got nothing from this end, Phil. I enjoyed what you showed us, that's for sure.
Phil, you have a question in the chat box. Phil, I'm not sure you saw the question in the chat box. Matt Wicks has asked, earlier you talked about getting faculty to move from consumers of OER to being contributors. What are one or two tips you have to get faculty headed in that direction?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had actually just been talking for the last 30 seconds to myself without pushing the button. Matt, the best thing that I've found so far is we've actually been developing common Moodle courses with our teachers, and I've been getting teachers to sit and put their own content in there. So they become more and more comfortable sharing it out with each other. And then they're a little leery about putting their content out there to the world. But building their confidence within the smaller groups and encouraging them to give back to the community from which they took is the path that I'm taking. And then Kathy, some of the textbooks are available in Spanish. There are many other places to look. California has a textbook initiative that they are in the middle of. And essentially, I believe by 2014, the long and short of it is they want all of their textbooks to be essentially free and open source and online. And they do have many books that are in there that are being written in Spanish. But specifically, I couldn't give you any off the top of my head.
Phil, can you show us your page again? I don't think we got the link there easily. Can you just go to your page of resources? Can you just show us the resource page? Can you click that or take us to that page yourself? And give us a look at what that page looks like when you are collecting collecting links and ideas?
Yeah, sure. Guess I've got to go back onto the sharing screen there, and this is where the tiny URL is. We'll put back up again, but this is essentially just a place where I've been annotating and compiling OER resources as we go through. By no means is it exhaustive, but they are places that I have had success, and people that I've been working with have had success locating content. We can pull back up the slide here in a second. I'm going to pull back up the presentation in a moment here. Is this what you were looking for, Jeff?
Yes, that growing list that you have, that's what I wanted them to see, was that list of resources that you have, just not the approximately a dozen that you showed us here, but all of those ones you've been compiling over time. I wanted them to see that.
And again, those are all available here. This is the link. I believe that, Jeff, you're going to put this all back up for everybody so they can go back and peruse this at a later time.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we're going to do that, Phil, and put the information out there.
Does anybody have any other questions here? Is our time whittles down? Any advice anybody would like, or other questions that I can answer?
If you happen to have any questions, if you would put them in the text box, the lower left, just enter them in there and hit enter. Then we can answer them. There's a couple of items here. While you're doing that, we'll give a little bit of Phil here, Phil a break for a second, and preview what's coming up for us. During the next several weeks, we plan to provide a whole variety of looks at online learning. Because there really is just not one way to start a program or have a program. There are lots of different answers, and so you're going to hear a lot of different voices. You're going to hear from, I heard about open educational resources. We will have some vendors talking to us about content, about some foreign language content as we go forward. Next week, Matt Wicks is here with us. Matt works with iNACOL. He's going to be talking about their group and the research and the things that they are doing next week. Over time, we plan to snare some of the voices out there in online learning across the country. And so each week we hope to put out there a bit of information that helps you process what works best in your context, because this is all contextual with your students, with your faculty, and with your community. So next week Matt will be with us, and if you'll have any final questions here, you can please put them in the text box, and we'll let Phil take his shot at that. We also have a wiki that's starting. We'll send that information out there to you. We plan to put this recording there, as well as Phil's slides, and of course then this link that he has up here again, so that you can keep up with his OER list and take a look at that. So next week at this time, 12:30 to 1 o'clock, Matt will be with us, talking to us about his organization and what he does professionally in the online community, and some services that they have, because this is a very valuable component to the success of online learning across the country and across the world now. Matt is instrumental in that. So seeing no other questions, Phil, do you have any final things to say?
Go out, explore, and use it. Like anything else, if you don't know what's out there, you can't use it. But I appreciate the time, Jeff and Ray. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for listening. And if you come up with questions later on down the line, my contact information is here on the screen. And as Jeff said, it'll be available, posted later on.
Ray, do you have any final points? I'll leave it to you, and you can close it.
All right. No questions, that's for sure. Just really like to take another opportunity to thank Phil for sharing his wealth of knowledge with us, and the sources and the link to the additional sources that he shared. And thank you, Jeff, for putting these together for the DuPage ROE. I think this is a very nice start to a series of these types of events, and I know I'm certainly looking forward to being a part of them on Tuesdays. So thanks to both of you.